Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Carter Martinez, and this is my co-presenter.
Olamide, Adejumo. How you doing, everybody?
Nice to meet you all. Hope you've had a fun morning so far, or afternoon or evening, whatever it is in your time zone. I'm in California, so it's morning. So we're here today to talk to you about sharing your story. And we are going to have a short presentation, and then we're going to actually have some time to practice sharing our stories. So if you could bring up the slideshow, that would be great. Okay, so I believe Ola is going to take us through some of these slides.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. So real quick, I'm going to just share a little bit about, storytelling. And I just want us to know that, because I know some people might be wondering, oh, I'm not skilled in the act of storytelling. How am I going to be a storyteller? But I just want us to know that everyone is a storyteller. For every time a child, cries up to his or her mother, and the mother asks the child, "Why are you crying?" That's simply a question asking for the story behind the pain of that child. And also, anytime we, visit the clinic and we're asked for the purpose of our visits, that's also, the process of asking for the story behind the visit. Next slide, please. I'm going to, can you, next slide, please, sorry. Yeah, so I'm going to primarily, I know we can read through what is being shared, so I might not dwell on all of it for time purpose. I'm going to make it as fast as possible. But the purpose of storytelling, as it were, is for us to have the ability to share our stories to others. And primarily because multiple stories help, deconstruct dominant narratives. An example is when a clinician goes to a conference and presents a paper on his research and says, "Oh, I have 100 patients, 20 of them is non-compliant." In the mind of the listeners, there are 20 difficult patients for this doctor. But the truth of the matter is, what does non-compliance mean? To some people, it might be stigma. To some people, it might be lack of access. To some people, it might be gender role, where a child is ill and the mother is expected to take care of the child. So the mother is torn between going to the clinic or taking care of her child. To others, it's socioeconomic access. So the purpose of having multiple stories is to project these realities to others and to enable social movements that will create the change that we need. Next slide, please. Yes, also when we talk about multiple stories also helps with, projecting the intersectionalities that each individual carries. My reality, or the reality of an African living with diabetes, is different from the reality of an American living with diabetes. And one of the ways by which these realities can actually be projected to everyone and, gain the kind of support and the kind of audience that is necessary for change is if we can motivate ourselves to share our stories. And like I said, it's inherent in us all. All we are here to do is just to activate that within us and, encourage us into the act of storytelling. And like this slide says, everyone has a story. And they are real, they are relatable, and they have the ability to motivate people to action and also empower the storyteller. Next slide, please. So what do we need for creative storytelling ideas? Let's stick to personal stories. Let's try to interact with one another to enhance our stories. In sharing your personal story, you are able to connect with people that's, understand what you're going through. And through that, you can enhance your story. I know there's no break. This says take a break, but I know there's no break from diabetes. But take a break from work, take a break from the hustle and bustle sometimes to, look inward for new ideas and thoughts. We also encourage creativity. Sometimes I take a walk to, Market Square. I remember when I first came to New York, people said New Yorkers are tough people, they're not nice. But I did a social experiment. I started talking to New Yorkers in the subway. And I realized that New Yorkers are just very busy people. They are really very nice people as well. Next slide, please. Have a journal where you scribble these thoughts down. The down moments, the up moments, just write them down. Share your story. Thankfully, T1 International has a blog where you can always, express yourself and share your story. Partner with people. Talk with other storytellers that, around the same central theme, and have your voice and opinion shared on such platform. Next slide, please. So in telling your story, one of the most important things that I'm going to talk about is ensuring that the stories we share are actually real stories, not sensationalizing the stories we're sharing. That's what I meant. And the reason why this is very important is because when we share our stories, we're inviting people into our lives. And one of the most painful things is when people doubt our stories. So whenever we try as much as possible to express our truths, we try as much as possible not to give people room to doubt the truth. And that's one of the reasons why it is very important for us not just to sensationalize the stories, but to ensure that whatever we are stating is about stating the truth and the facts of our experiences with living with diabetes. Next slide, please. All right, I think these are self-explanatory. Yes, somebody told you says the story is relevant and important, and I absolutely agree with that. So avoid conspiracy theory. One of the problems we're having now is information, fake news, false information. We must try as much as possible to ensure that we only share. If the story is not ours, we endeavor to verify the facts of the stories so that people would, because people build trust in us as advocates. Next slide, please. So the tips continue. Do not exaggerate or change your story because you think it might be more convincing. I think I already said this. Allow your story to evolve. You don't have to be an expert initially, but as you develop yourself, you become better at what you do. You don't have to be an excellent writer. You can express yourself in form of arts, spoken words, poems, amongst others. Next slide, please. Yes, I think I already said this. Next slide, please. Yes, so at this point, I think I'm going to hand over to Kim to give us, a tip onto how the workshop would go. And as we do that, I just want us to know that we should consider this, a safe and a brave space where we are free to express ourselves and free to share our stories amongst ourselves. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Ola. So we're about to break into small groups. And when we break into small groups, we're going to take some time to practice telling our stories. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this picture of insulin. We're all familiar with it. We all use it. It keeps us alive. When you look at this picture of insulin, what story does it make you think of from your own personal life? What kind of reaction do you have to this vial of insulin? What do you want people to know about your relationship to insulin? That's the story we're going to tell in our small groups. So we'll break into small groups. You'll have a facilitator in your group. You're going to take a few minutes to write down some bullet points, and then you're going to practice telling your story. And it doesn't need to be very long. It can be a minute, 2 minutes, but 2 minutes of what does insulin, what is the reaction it brings up within you? What story does it make you want to tell? Next slide. All right, so we're going to break into our groups now. Everybody, I got cut off in my mid-sentence in my last group. I hope that didn't happen to too many other people. And I hope that people had a good chance to share a little bit of their stories, because when we tell stories, we also tell about our disease, and we educate people about our disease. So wondering in the big group if people want to share a little bit about how it felt to share a story about insulin with other diabetics. How did that feel? What kind of emotions did it bring? And how will this help you as you go out into the world, tell your story about diabetes?
Yeah, all right. So I'd like to just make a general comment. I think it's such a great idea to share the stories. Well, it's because, in the world where like everything is all about numbers and deaths have just become number. Oh, these many people died because of the flood. These many people died because of the disease or epidemic. I think it's so important to inculcate all of those emotions, the family members, the trauma we're going through, the trauma the future generation will have to process. I think it is really vital to just mention that. And I think it will be a great idea if, we guys could start a podcast or something about, where we could bring the patients who have actually like suffered from the insulin crisis, and maybe people from the conflicted areas like Syria or Afghanistan or Yemen or whatsoever. So I just really wanted to say that I really appreciate that exercise, and looking forward to continue that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think the podcast is a lovely idea. That's a great idea. Any other reactions? So we got some in the chat. It feels good to tell and practice these stories with people who you know will understand. Yes, we definitely talked about that in my group. That we have to be really vulnerable to share these stories and to be able to do it with other people that understand the emotions behind our stories and the experiences behind our stories is a really powerful thing. Okay. Ola, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Yes, thank you, Kim. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. Yes, exactly. I agree with this, with Elizabeth on that. Yes. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. I did a bit of hopping around the rooms, and I don't know if I have the permission to share what I scribbled down, but I'm able to realize that, okay, let me just read this first. It says, I appreciated, that's Allison, I appreciated in our groups that there was joy for insulin and pain and fear, just a whole range of emotions articulated, which I think is the general theme that I felt when, I was moving from the groups. I experienced the diagnosis story shared by Larry, which was very important. And I like the fact that I realized a connection between Larry's story and John's story in another group. And I was only able to witness it because they both shared their stories. They both had the fear of needles, and then they both shared their diagnosis stories. And that's the beauty of storytelling. The essence is for us to be able to connect with one another. The validation, yes, the validation is always very helpful. And it also emboldens us to be able to put out there, our experiences. And like Pramita had said, yes, I hope, T1 International will also, create the podcast platform for people, those who feel, they can easily express their stories through spoken words. And for those that want to try, with the writing, yes, please try. Feel free. I know T1 International has a blog post for which, stories are being shared. Yes, we can also, share our stories through that. And I hope that we can also keep practicing these stories. Let's, relate with one another. Let's, take this group beyond what we've done now and, interact with one another, share our stories within one another, and, partner with one another in publishing our stories out there and supporting one another. Thank you very much for an amazing time. Thank you so much on behalf of myself and Kim. I want to say thank you, and let's do this again. Kim, over to you.
Just thank you. And I think as we work on our activism, we'll learn to incorporate more and more of our stories into our activism, because these stories, along with the numbers and the facts and the statistics, will move people. So thank you all so much for having us today, and have a good rest of your Sunday.